is Max Access, where Mackenzie Barwell takes you closer to members of Forge FC off the pitch on the Forge Audio Network.
Are we good, Corey? Are we rolling here? Fantastic.
What are we doing?
Okay, so this is Max Access.
Okay.
Welcome.
All right. Sounds good.
This is essentially where we give the Forge fans an opportunity to get to know the people behind the players, or in this case, coach.
Ex-player.
So ex-player,
Yeah.
and we'll get to that very shortly. But I want to ask you some questions about yourself, and then maybe we'll get to one or two about this weekend.
Okay.
So let me just say one thing. I don't know how well you did with media as a player, but you're fantastic now. And I thoroughly enjoy doing interviews with you. And I was actually shocked when at the coaches clinic, you mentioned that you wanted to try this public speaking thing.
Taskmasters, I think it's called. Toastmasters.
Toastmasters.
Yeah.
Okay, so can we just talk about that for 1 second? Because you said you go into this thing and you talk in front of a bunch of people just to get experience, but here you are doing this, obviously.
Doing it, yeah. Well, I think for me personally, it's more of a, I can do this and I can do the interviews and the conversations and the press conference and things like that, but most coaches, especially people who have made the transition from player to coach, will tell you that standing up in front of a group who you had recently played with is a little bit more nerve-wracking than normally, right? Because you've sat in those rooms, you've had those meetings from managers. I know Steven Gerrard talked about his first meeting when he became a manager, when he left Liverpool and went to Rangers, and he said it was the most nerve-wracking thing he's ever done in his life. Right? Like, I'll do all these things, I'm quite outgoing, but singing in front of a group, like things like that, it makes me uncomfortable, like stuff like that. So I'm trying to get just another string to my bow, I guess, and be more comfortable with it.
Well, you just mentioned it there. I'm curious to ask about your transition from being a player to coach, because as I'm sure many of the Forge fans know, you were on this team at one point. So number one, what was that like? And also number two, how did you adjust to being in a coaching position with former teammates? Like there's something about, I don't know, I'm thinking of Kyle in particular. Like how was that dynamic when you were kind of in a, I don't know, the power dynamic was different.
Yeah. No, it's a great question. Well, early in my career, I knew this is something I want to pursue. There was no doubt in my mind. I found myself working with managers, and I had a lot of managers if you look at my my history, but I took the good and the bad from all of them, and I just try to mold them into what I wanted to be and what I saw myself as and want to be as a manager, and keeping it authentic, right? So what works, what doesn't work, what a player's like, what is not players not like, things like that, and just picking up things along the way. So that transition for myself happened a little bit sooner than I thought. Injury-wise, I had that accident off the field, so that kind of pushed the time frame up a couple years. I'd say so, because I had envisioned myself coming here a little bit later in my career and whatnot. But listen, everything happens for a reason, and I'm learning from one of the best, that's for sure. And as I said, I've had a lot of managers, so I'm lucky enough to work in this office and work with Bobby and the other coaching staff and see how things are done day to day over the last 4 years. And win some silverware along the way, right? So it's not a bad start to my coaching career.
Okay, so you didn't have any problems with former teammates not taking you seriously the first time
Well, we'll get to the Bekker
or?
thing if you like, but no, I've known Kyle best part of 15 years, I guess, when we were talking about the national team. So we've always had a relationship. We've never played in the same team apart from the national team, and then I got a chance to play with him here, and really, you get to know someone and you travel, and he's like a little brother to me, and yes, that does change when you become a coach and you have to kind of take a back seat. And I look at it myself as kind of letting him become the person he is and the leader he wants to be for the group. So, and if I can help him along the way, that's fantastic for me. But it's really just about giving the players the space and the freedom to kind of
come into their
own, I guess, right?
Totally.
And I don't need to be telling Kyle Bekker what to do. He's a good enough player and things like that. It's just kind of facilitate their learning, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so what do you like most about this new role? Because one of the things you mentioned to me at the open practice was that as great as it is to have this new perspective, it can be frustrating at times because you're thinking, wish I knew that as a player. It seems so simple now.
Yeah. Well, that's my advice. And I was talking to one of the Montreal players that I played in the national team, and I just said my advice would be to take a year off and learn coaching if it was even possible. And it sounds like a crazy idea, but
Interesting.
I wish I did my badges, but again, at the same time, it was never right in my time in my career to go and do them. And I'm not sure I would have learned as much from that as I have learned from just being thrown in the deep end here.
Right.
So finishing and then coming straight into the coaching side and going, okay, well, this is, and Bobby's fantastic at letting you learn your own way. And again, giving you that space to learn and correcting you along the way when you're making mistakes. So I've been in a fantastic place to start my career.
I would imagine, though, to your point about pausing and going into coaching just to gain that different perspective, it might be harder to completely buy in to that coaching role as opposed to you coming off and completely knowing that your playing career is over. And then, I don't know. I'm curious to know if you would have that same...
I don't think it would ever work. I don't think it would ever work. And you're right, because you'd always have that mind frame you're coming back. It's more of just a lingering thing because I have looked after myself.
Right.
I do join in training. I do enjoy it, but that's good for me. I'm okay with that. Yeah. I know I made the right decision at the right time. It's never going to be easy, and you can ask any player who's retired. Some players want to finish. I never wanted to. I wanted to play for the rest of my life, and that feeling's never going to go away. And you get games like yesterday and the big games, and those feelings of, this is what we're doing it for, right? And then it's. But you realize that this is just chapter 2 of my life, right?
Mm-hmm. And sometimes Coach Bobby gives you a penny to throw on during
training.
You
go. He knows. He knows when I love it. He knows 100%. You saw it, right? You saw the excitement.
So let's rewind. I want to talk about your days as a player. Is there one moment in particular that stands out to you?
Well, I think you'd have to say my home debut for Newcastle on New Year's Day when I scored against Man United. Right? Pause.
Pause. Holy, let's just take a second.
Yeah. I mean, I think most sort of Canadian fans and soccer fans know that. But that's the easy one to say. You've got the games for me that stick out more. West Ham at home when we're down 3-0 and I come off the bench and it finishes 3-3. I'm not saying it happened because of me, but those are the types of game I actually played better in. I got to captain my country, which I remember watching Canada lift the Gold Cup in 2001 and knowing that was a goal of mine, not to play for England, not to play for another country, but to play for Canada. So being able to walk out and lead the team out with the maple leaf and the armband was a very important moment in my life.
Wow, I'm sorry for even asking you to narrow it down to one. That was an inappropriate question on my part.
It was okay.
What about a funny fan interaction? This is one of my favorite questions. Can you recall a moment where you kind of giggled after?
Well, I wasn't really giggling. Okay, well, it was only because I was talking about this one the other day. But I wasn't really giggling.
I'm curious to know where this is going right now.
I spent a year on loan at Sheff United, and it kind of gives our fans here, I guess, a little context as to how important the game is over there. So you're in League One, massive club in Sheffield United. Played every week. Played 36 games. Thought I did well, and I was so excited because the last home game you walk around. It was the first time my daughter was over, my oldest, who was my only child at the time, and you get to walk around the field after the game,
fun.
Her on your shoulders, blah, blah, blah. Except we got beat and we didn't make the playoffs, so about 10,000 fans stayed to scream at us and boo us. So we're walking around the field, and my daughter's just getting booed.
No!
So you're kind of half clapping and looking up, and she's wondering why these people are swearing at her daddy. And you're
my gosh.
Part and parcel of the game, I guess, but... Yeah, there's been some funny ones.
So there's been moments.
Yeah, there's moments, and there's fans who they think because you're out there and you're putting yourself out there in the public spotlight playing that you're free game to say whatever you want.
Right?
Yeah,
like,
invincible,
come on.
right? There's another thing too. Some players are just human beings who are good at soccer.
Oh man,
they're not
most
trained.
I would say
most,
no.
Yeah. And they're not trained to handle this stuff. And this is why the social media scares me for young players and players coming up, because I don't care what anyone says. The person on the other end of typing the abuse to you could be absolutely no one, but it's still going to hurt, right? It's still going to hurt these players. So for me, it's better off not to get involved.
Well, that setting you just described sounds very intense. To your point about how serious it is over there, and you talk about players not really being prepared for that. But what about your daughter?
Yeah, no, she definitely wasn't prepared for it.
Come on, people, take a hint.
Like a young Canadian girl over in Sheffield getting booed at while it's raining. Yeah.
How about a post-game celebration?
Whoa.
This is this was my favorite one that I wanted to.
You know what?
ask.
I'll stick with Forge here.
Okay.
Anyone,
I like it.
Any of the fans who were around in 2019 that saw me and Kyle Bekker having a good time after the first championship. I know Correy was there.
Remains.
Yeah.
Correy, please.
We talk about the hotel bar after the flight home, the night. It was just amazing, and it was the first time I'd won something in my career, right at that age, and so to really experience something like that, and being home and being around of like Kyle Bekker and being part of Forever First was an incredible experience. So it deserved to be celebrated.
Right.
Yeah.
I like how we don't really get into any details.
Well, there's a lot of details of that trip, right? But no, it was a good flight home.
I can imagine.
Good flight home.
Corey, any comments from the peanut gallery?
The morning after, you were outside. I came out and I talked to you for a little bit. You said like what it meant to win that championship to you. I think that's a conversation that'll stick with me. Just like the importance that it meant to you.
Wow, thank you for that.
Yeah,
thank you for that.
Sense of like you might have been
still inebriated. Yeah. No, and I 100% was, but no, I appreciate that because it did, and it still does, and creating history here. And listen, it's no secret that Canadian soccer is a massive part of my life and a passion. And I was part of the national team for 15 years, so the CSA, I guess, in terms of my first national team camp. So Canadian soccer in general, from the very lowest levels, what we're trying to help out in Waterloo to up here it's just massively important to me.
I love that.
Yeah. Thank you, Corey.
Thank you for your insight, Corey. Was that on the field the next day or what?
Be outside the hotel, right? Yeah, I remember it now.
Okay, so you also recall. That's awesome.
Vaguely,
he says. Yeah. Well, clearly it made an impact. Yeah. Okay, so before I let you go, I do want to fast forward to Pacific. From your perspective, what are some of the things that go into shifting your mentality, or if that's even required? Because obviously these players are going from playing an MLS opponent in a Canadian championship now back to the regular season and trying to continue on the momentum that they have now. So what goes into that? Yeah,
a lot of mental work, I would say. Sorry, I couldn't get the word out there, but we've been in this situation before. In fact, it was a lot similar last year with the game coming up against Montreal. You travel, last year, the year before, you travel, but after a massive game like this, you expend so much energy physically and mentally, and we've got the data and we can see how hard we worked and whatnot, and it takes it out of you mentally. The heat, first game in the heat, early morning, lots of fans. So yeah, there is a lot of things, but it's what makes the top teams, right? And the standards you set in the day-to-day and coming in and recovering now. And then, yes, the travel is like this, but it's like this for everyone in the league. And to in order to be a top team and to stay a top team and consistent, you have to be able to dust yourself off from this game, move on, debrief, and then prepare for the next one. And for me, I don't think there's a better manager that I've worked with that is as good at that and just work that transition to work on, okay, what's next? What's in front of us? Not what's ahead of us. We'll deal with what's next, and then we'll go from there. So it's about that. There's going to be tired bodies, but now it's our first road trip of the season, so the guys will have to tweak things, what time they wake up, and things like that. So we'll see, and I'll be there, and the coaching staff will be there just to kind of help them.
Yeah, well, I thought it was interesting. Coach Bobby said at the press conference yesterday, he was asked about looking ahead, and he quite literally said, we're flipping the switch and looking to Pacific.
100%.
So I think flipping the switch is exactly what you said, what you mean there. What goes into a travel day? I'm very curious to know how the players behave on the plane. Like, are most of them sleeping? Or is there any shenanigans taking place?
Well, see, this is where I think you guys should come for things like that. This is what the fans. This is what the fans want to see, right? They want to see how do you move? How does a professional sports team move from one position to another, right? Like the kit man. This is what you should sit down with Joe Hanley. Like, this is the stuff that. The behind the scenes that I personally think fans would be intrigued by, because we take it for granted because we show up, we have our bags packed, which Jelani sends the thing out and people still forget. So, but it's that you get your stuff and then all of a sudden everything is taken care of, right? And at this level, things do get taken care of for you, and you are able to just control what you can control and how your performance is. So Yeah, travel days are long. Travel days are tough, but that's why I meditate, right? Like you gotta,
that's what meditation's
for. You get a 5-hour chance on the plane while Jelani sleeps with his hood backwards. But yeah, there's a lot of sleeping going on. Some guys like the windows, some guys like the aisles. It is what it is, but
I've heard that conversation too.
Yeah.
Well, I was just talking to Dom outside, and he was showing me the itinerary, and it's like a well-oiled machine.
Oh yeah,
it's insane. So.
No, it is, and that's the thing. You got to give them in advance because it's a fine if you're late for anything. So if you can see it 4 days, you should never be late for anything.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah. Oh, of course.
Sheesh.
You gotta be on time. Gotta be on time.
In that case, please.
I gotta get to school.
Yeah, get out of here. Thank you so much, Eddie.
Thank you very much.
You killed it.
You're gonna fist bump me with your left hand?
No, I was like, I got the cameras.
Thanks for listening to Max Access on the Forge Audio Network. If you like what you heard, please like, follow, subscribe, comment, and share.